Trek Beyond is the third installment in the newest Star Trek series. This time around, it's not directed by J.J. Abrams, but actually Justin Lin. And this movie stars Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Karl Urban, Zoe Saldana, and Idris Elba. And in this film, due to a series of disastrous events, the Enterprise crash lands on a planet, which leaves all of the Enterprise's crew scattered all across the planet, while they try to survive from the new villain, Karl. This guy wants a piece of technology that's been hidden on the Enterprise for many years, and he'll stop at nothing to get it. The best word I could use to describe how I felt about this movie going into it would probably be worried, because I loved the last Star Trek film. I thought it was really well directed by J.J. Abrams, but I didn't know how I felt about Justin Lin being the new director for the series. And the reason why is because I thought this movie would have the X-Men 3 syndrome. And what I mean by that is, the first two X-Men movies were directed by Bryan Singer. They were terrific films, they were very successful, I loved them. And then by the time the third one came around, Bryan Singer went on to go direct Superman Returns because he wanted to do that instead of this movie. And what happened was they got Brett Ratner to replace him and direct X-Men The Last Stand, which turned out to be very disappointing and very poorly directed. So if Bryan Singer would have directed X-Men 3, I think that movie would have been a lot better than it actually was. So when I heard that Justin Lin was directing Star Trek 3 and J.J. Abrams was leaving to direct Star Wars The Force Awakens, I was kind of like, oh god, this is going to be X-Men 3 all over again, isn't it? And the only thing really notable about Justin Lin's filmography was the last few Fast and the Furious films that he directed. And then we got a trailer for this movie that only made me less confident because it really looked like Justin Lin was taking Star Trek and changing the tone a lot and making it look like it was one of those films where you can just turn your brain off and have fun. And that was kind of alarming. But I am so happy to tell you that Star Trek Beyond is one of the biggest surprises of 2016. This is a really entertaining, fun summer blockbuster with some really great characters and some really well-directed action sequences. Although I don't think it's quite as good as Star Trek Into Darkness for a few reasons that I'm about to get into. The thing that I think I love the most about this movie was the characters and how their relationships were portrayed on screen. For the majority of the movie, the crew of the Enterprise is scattered and they have to rely on each other to get off the planet alive. And that aspect of the story made for some really interesting character moments. Once again, Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto are fantastic as Kirk and Spock, and they play off of each other beautifully. And I actually think the writing for Spock in this film is the best it's ever been. This film, unlike the other two in the series, was written by Simon Pegg, and I really think he did a great job utilizing the character of Spock and giving Zachary Quinto some absolutely hilarious scenes. For example, there's some scenes in this film where we get to see how Spock interacts with people in social situations, and oh my god, it was absolutely terrific. Karl Urban was also really great in this film, and I think some of the best scenes in this entire movie are the ones where he and Spock are just having normal conversations. The writing for these characters is so good, and it was really cool seeing their very different personalities coming together on screen. And I actually think some of the dialogue sequences in this film gave this movie a huge step up in terms of writing from Star Trek Into Darkness. There were a couple other characters that I really liked in this movie. One of them would be Simon Pegg as Scotty. We all know Simon Pegg is great in this franchise, and like most of his other movies, he's definitely one of the bright spots of this film. And a new character in this film that I thought was great was Jayla. What was really cool about her character is that while she was a complete badass and really cool to watch during the fight scenes, she was actually really interesting, and she was just an interesting person. And the film really used her to its advantage. I really don't think we get enough interesting, strong, badass female characters in movies nowadays, and I'm really glad this movie included one. And now I want to get into something that I was a little bit off and on with. The villain, Karl, played by Idris Elba, I thought had a very weak presence in this film. He at least poses a threat to the crew and is able to give them a big evil guy to fight against, but his motivations for wanting this thing that's located inside the Enterprise aren't really that clear, and the film doesn't really go out of its way to flesh him out as a character, and I just didn't really feel that invested in him. This was pretty disappointing to me because the villain in the last Star Trek film, Khan, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, was amazing. I thought he was a great villain, and he was kind of a character that you love to hate because Benedict Cumberbatch gave such a good performance. And unfortunately, Idris Elba's villain in this movie is nowhere near as good as Khan. Let's talk about the way this movie's directed, because I was really worried about Justin Lin going to the Star Trek films when really all he's done in his filmography is the last few Fast and Furious films. And when the trailer came out for this movie, I thought it looked like Fast and the Furious meets Star Trek. At least that's what it looked like tonally. But I was really pleased with what Justin Lin was able to do with this movie. He didn't change the tone too much from the last two Star Trek films. He was able to make it really fun and entertaining and keep it going at a really fast pace. And for the most part, the action is really well directed here. Unfortunately, during some of the action sequences in this film, Justin Lin used a lot of shaky cam, and it wasn't in the movie for that long, but when it was, it really got on my nerves. You really couldn't tell what was going on. and I wish he would have tried to film in wide takes to show us the action. Guys, Star Trek Beyond was awesome. It was really fun. It was a great summer movie. I think Justin Lin did a really great job directing this film, and it had some really interesting, well-written characters that I couldn't get enough of. I'm gonna give this film an 8.4 out of 10. I thought it was really great, but it wasn't quite as good as the last Star Trek film because of a villain that I really just wasn't invested in, and some very annoying shaky cam. So guys, have you seen Star Trek Beyond? What are your thoughts on it? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.